Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming today. As we are all aware, the world has been rocked by the terror attacks in Israel and the continuing tragedies suffered by innocent civilians in the days after. The war is affecting thousands of Toronto residents who have family and friends in those regions. I've personally fielded dozens of direct calls from community leaders expressing their concerns and asking for our help. Earlier this week, I met with leaders from Jewish communities and the Palestinian communities to discuss our role as law enforcement, about public safety in our city, and how we can help our residents over the coming days and weeks. While I'm advised that these communities are grateful and supportive of the work of the Toronto Police Service, this war has shaken the feelings of peace and security here at home. The Toronto Police Service will do everything we can as law enforcement to help Toronto families, businesses, and all of our residents feel safe as they go about their daily lives. To that end, the command and senior leadership of the Toronto Police Service has directed that all divisions ensure a high visibility presence of officers across the city. Since this past weekend, all officers have been advised to have their uniforms ready and be available for deployment. And this morning, I spoke with all unit commanders to underline this priority. As we communicated earlier this week, in response to the terror attack in Israel, the service immediately increased patrols in Jewish communities, and we have now expanded that increased visibility to include cultural centers, synagogues, mosques, schools, and other places of worship across the city. There will be 2 command posts set up to serve local communities, take reports, and serve as a location where police officers will be on the ground and easily reached by those communities if needed. Local divisional officers and auxiliary officers will be on duty. People can expect to see a continued increased police presence for the foreseeable future. The service continues to work with federal, provincial, and municipal law enforcement partners to ensure coordination and information sharing. I've connected with GTA chiefs and also with OPP Commissioner Thomas Carrick and Assistant Commissioner of the RCMP, Matt Peggs, this morning. And those lines of communication between law enforcement are open and active. With regard to hateful behavior, I will underline again that violence and hateful acts will not be tolerated in the city. The Toronto Police Service and our hate crime unit will aggressively pursue any alleged or suspected incidents of hate crime or hate-motivated behavior in our city. There will be no tolerance for any forms of hate or intimidation. Residents are encouraged to report any allegations of hate-motivated incidents to police for investigation. Please always call 911 for emergencies. For incidents that do not have an immediate safety concern, please call our non-emergency line. And please call so we can investigate. Should you have information that you wish to remain anonymous about providing, please call Crime Stoppers. We are continuing to monitor this situation here in Toronto and beyond. We will deploy our officers to ensure residents feel a sense of safety and security. And I'd like to close my remarks today by expressing my gratitude for the members of the Toronto Police Service and saying thank you for responding quickly and admirably this past weekend and continuing to do so in the days that have followed. I'll now take questions.
Have there been any credible threats to any of these communities as of now?
There are no specific credible threats in the City of Toronto in this regard.
The online threats that were circulating, can you speak a little bit more to those?
I can. I mean, this is precisely the kind of thing that impacts a sense of safety and security amongst our residents, and our communities have been very, very clear that they are concerned for their feelings of safety and their sense of safety, and we want to be present in ensuring our communities not only are safe, but we need them to feel safe. We'd like them to feel comfortable to go and express themselves and go to synagogue and go to mosque and go to businesses and attend in their community, and that we'd like them to do so feeling safe, and that's precisely why we're deploying the way we are.
Are those online posts specifically targeting Jewish communities?
Well, there have been all kinds of online posts. So, I think there have been online posts targeting a number of different aspects of this set of events.
Chief, what else can you tell us about the two command posts that you mentioned? Where are they? Are they going to be staffed 24/7? Any further details on them?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. The command posts will be at Bathurst and Lauren and Bathurst and Glencairn. They will be staffed from 7 a.m. They'll be staffed through operational hours when the community is most frequently in the area. I don't want to get into overly great amounts of specificity in that regard, but we will be staffed when the community is out and about, and we'll be there for their community to be more accessible, more reachable, and easier for community to come forward and ensure we have the understanding of how the community feels, and specifically to ensure that there's opportunities to report anything that we ought to be aware of.
What more can you tell us about the nature of the concerns that have been raised by community members?
Well, I think, there was a question earlier, thank you for that, a question earlier around, online posts. And we also know there's been a fairly strong amount of rhetoric, both in social media and otherwise, around events in the last days. All of this has been expressed as a concern for people's well-being, and people want to know how safe they are, what's coming. So one of the concerns in times like this is there is not always the clarity of information that we would like to provide, direct information to alleviate the safety concerns. That's why I want to be clear, there's no specific threat to the City of Toronto. However, our communities have spoken clearly that they don't feel safe, and we are being responsive to that concern.
I know you've had some incidents of hate-motivated graffiti and the like. Can you give us more details on any other incidents that might have happened over recent days?
Well, of course, yesterday there was wide reporting about an incident at a bus shelter. We are, one of the reasons we're putting the command posts in the community is to ensure that we have direct connectivity as quickly as we can to any kind of incidences that are of concern. So we're, creating open channels for engagement to make sure we get that quickly, and that's for a couple reasons. A, we want to be able to respond quickly and gather evidence, and secondly, we want to be able to secure the scene and clean up whatever is there to ensure the community does feel safe.
Is there any word of any protests tomorrow? Are you guys expecting anything like that?
So as it relates to protests, of course, we're all aware that there's many channels of communication around the world around protests. We are continuing to monitor that very, very actively, and we'll respond to any specifics as it relates to Toronto. At this point, I can advise you that we're actively monitoring to determine if there is anything specific for Toronto.
Can you talk specifically about how the federal and provincial officials are helping with your investigations?
Absolutely. I think it's important to recognize that we operate in an integrated policing environment. We benefit from an incredible partnership, both within municipal police services, but provincially and federally. So, for example, we have joint forces units in various disciplines, and have had that for many years. That's been the policing model here. As it relates to events of this nature, we have a number of ways our police agencies connect to share information, intelligence in a timely way, but we're also operationally connected through things like the RCMP-led Integrated National Security Enforcement Team, where we are embedded in those units. We have leadership roles in those units as a municipal service, recognizing that the population of Toronto is impacted by many of these kinds of events. And that's one example. There are many others where we have operational centers and where we have our officers sit together with other agencies and able to seamlessly exchange information and understand the operating picture of our different jurisdictions.
Chief, you mentioned you're telling your officers to have their uniforms ready, you're ready to deploy additional officers. What does that look like? Do you have extra officers available if there is a situation where they're needed?
That's a great question. I really appreciate that. And I think it's important to understand that, well, first of all, we don't have extra officers. What we do is we take officers from other duties and we get them ready to serve our core functions as expeditiously as we can. We are still focused on ensuring our core service delivery across the city, responding to priority calls. And when you have this type of event happen, we need to move officers operationally into different roles so that we can continue to focus on our core service delivery while at the same time being able to deploy uniform officers to specific areas where there's a safety concern. And that's what we're doing. We're taking officers out of other duties and we're assigning them to duties that help us deliver on our core service functions and this particular initiative.
You also mentioned no credible threats at this time. How do you determine if a threat is credible?
Well, we assess that based on the information we receive, the specifics. We certainly assess it with our partners so that we don't operate in a vacuum. We operate in an integrated way with our partners provincially and federally. So, you know, there's, without getting into specifics that I'm not at liberty to discuss, what I can tell you is that we're very connected with all our partners so that we can evaluate information in an effective way and recognize the impact it has on Toronto and be able to adjust to address community safety concerns here.
Chief, we're hearing that some Jewish day schools are considering closing. Have you heard of any threats to these schools, and is there going to be increased patrol at the school?
Yeah, so again, great question. There's no specific threat in that regard. We are increasing our patrols around schools. That is a source of concern in the community, as we certainly appreciate and understand. We, of course, all cherish our children and want them to be safe in their learning environment, and we'll be assisting and supporting the community to ensure children can attend school and feel safe, and that parents can feel safe leaving their children at school.
Chief, you mentioned this expansion is to all places of worship now. First of all, that takes effect now, or is it tomorrow? That expansion?
I'm sorry, forgive me the last part?
Is the expansion of the patrols taking place today or tomorrow?
No, they're already in process, and we'll be operationalizing further through the coming day.
And would it be fair to say that there's still a added degree around the Jewish community, while it's all communities getting added patrol and visibility, is the focus still towards the Jewish community?
Yes, I think I want to be clear on that. There is a focus on the Jewish community as well as where we know, you know, the Palestinian community and others who may be directly impacted or feel a sense of safety and security concern. We'll be deploying focused in those areas.
Have you been in touch with universities in particular about some of the planned demonstrations? There have been a few organizations speaking out ahead of those. Have you had any liaising with those in charge of universities?
We have teams of officers who are engaged in that.
Chief, how would you describe this level of alert? Would you say this is unprecedented, something happening overseas and having this level of alert from police?
Again, a great question. I think it's important for people in Toronto to know that the Toronto Police monitors world events regularly. We are an incredibly diverse city, and we recognize that geopolitical events around the world impact our communities here where they live. So we do that as a matter of course, and we've deployed officers to provide a greater sense of safety and security in other circumstances. This is absolutely unique. It is an unprecedented level of terror attack that happened in Israel that we are responding to this past weekend, and we are continuing to now bolster our response to address all the safety concerns that have been expressed by both the Jewish communities as well as the Palestinian communities.
You mentioned the phone calls you've received from the community. What is your message to Torontonians who are watching right now who don't feel safe, who are worried about violence?
I will thank you for that. My message is, please know that as the Chief of Police, I speak for the Toronto Police Service, and I will say that the Toronto Police Service is committed to ensuring the safety and well-being of all residents of this city, and that we recognize the unique set of circumstances that are at play here and the unique impact it has on Jewish communities as well as the Palestinian communities, and we will be responsive to the concerns that community members have brought forward to us. You will see an increased presence. You will see an increased engagement, and I will personally be attending in communities throughout the coming days to ensure that I have an opportunity to speak to communities, to listen to communities, and to learn how they feel and how we make sure that we adjust our posture to ensure the communities feel safe.
Thank you, Mark.
What goes into the calculus of calling oppressors like this today? local events fairly regularly, and there's obviously calculus between, inadvertently broadcasting an extremist message by having even an event like this, just raising more awareness of this versus, informing the public of safety. So as you were considering doing this today, what was the sort of calculus in your mind?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I think I really want to reiterate that I've listened to communities' concerns through phone calls and meetings, and they have expressed their sense of safety and security, and we discussed what the expectations would be and what we should be doing. And our response is really co-developed as a result of discussions with community, as well as, we are an incredibly diverse organization. We have perspective of communities within our organization. So we have listened to those concerns and perspectives, and that's helped inform our operational posture, but also the need for us to get the message out that you're going to see more police officers. We are going to ensure the safety and well-being of our communities.
One more?
For anybody who's intending to take part in the protest, the rally, what message do you have for them in particular?
Well, it's the same message we have every single time, and that is that we are responsible for ensuring that those types of events are safe, that they're lawful, and I'd ask people to be respectful, recognize that we've been very, very clear about our stand regarding hate and intimidation, and that hateful speech and intimidation and violence will not be tolerated. What we will do is facilitate a lawful, peaceful assembly and protest the way we always have.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.